your brand is not your website. Your brand is as much how you deliver your services as how you talk about your services. And the more you understand who you're helping, and this is what you're talking about, is a really, really good implementation of this idea of where is the intersection between what your ideal client needs the most and what you solve.
It's going back to what we spoke about at the beginning of the discussion. Why me?
Right.
I have the law degree, but for my core client to buy into the coaching process, they have to feel intellectually satisfied. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Now,
hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. And I can't wait for this conversation with Scott Mason, who, I don't know, I've decided he's my new best friend. I haven't told him yet. You're hearing it. He's hearing it. We just have so enjoyed our conversation, so enjoyed your energy, so enjoyed everything. Why don't you give people a little more official description of who you are and what you do? So we can expand your fan base here.
Absolutely. So who I am and what do I do? My name is Scott Mason and I am Erin Marcus's best friend. Bye.
That's it. That's how this works.
Bone slam down. But that's total. I'm glad to know I'm glad to know our affection is mutual, because that would really stink if I had this man crush on you and you were like, I hate him. So thank you for that. I am the Myth Slayer, and I work with attorneys and professionals who are looking to step into leadership or to transition into a business life or professional life that they really love if they're feeling stuck or stagnant. I like to use my own signature program that's rooted in a combination of my professional experience as an attorney and executive and the timeless legends and endless truths of Greek mythology to help people magnetize and monetize professional freedom for themselves. My goal is to have everyone throw away the toxic myths that are keeping them stuck and stagnant in their professional life, ignite their inner charisma, and become walking, talking Olympians whose lives are epic.
Nice. I mean, how could you not want that?
Right.
And I also think, like, knowing your background as a lawyer, I think there's certain professions that can, I hate to say only, we'll say mostly, learn this from people who've walked their walk.
Yeah.
Right. There's certain professions. I remember when I was getting 100%. My MBA, right? And I think lawyers is one of those situations. Yeah. Where if you haven't done it, they're going to discount your opinion as someone who doesn't understand, because it is a culture into itself.
100% accurate. And there are some legitimate reasons for that. Law school itself is so demanding, and it does acculturate you to a particular way of thinking, which is very risk averse, as well as create a language that people speak that is almost like a code that says exactly as you've said, that you've walked the walk, that you've been where I have been, and so you can understand and provide legit guidance to someone in my situation. The other thing, being perfectly candid about this, Erin, is that from the perspective of attorneys as well as some other higher end, quote unquote, professions, coaching has a reputation that is mixed. Okay,
right. Well, and here's the thing. I have no problem with that, actually. Yeah. I have a label of coach as one of my labels, and I think it's a very mixed bag of results and who's in it. There's no barrier, I mean, think about it. Law school, brutal. difficult.
Right.
There's no barrier to entry in coaching.
Right.
So
Right.
why, right? So how in the world are you going to take people who've had to fight tooth and nail to achieve something and tell them to listen to someone who has no barrier to entry
Right.
in their chosen profession? It doesn't mean that they're all bad. It doesn't mean we're all bad. It just is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely fair. You have too many situations out there where people just hang a shingle on their front door and say, I'm a coach, because of that lack of barrier to entry. And again, like you said, some of them may well be awesome, but some it's sort of like, I went to law school, I went to medical school, I have an MBA, and you expect me to listen to you. Why? If there is a reason, then that listening can happen. But that's part of why I am so committed to being there for attorneys and other similarly situated professionals, because I actually have walked that walk and have the educational and professional credentials to back up the journey that I am encouraging my clients to walk.
When I always remember, because I love this story. So when I got my MBA, I had a dual focus in marketing and executive leadership. And one of the women that facilitated several of the executive leadership courses, she was an executive coach, and one of her clients was NASA. And evidently, if NASA sees somebody with even an inkling of leadership capabilities, they will dump a ton of money into cultivating this person, because you've basically got a group of rocket scientists who aren't going to listen to anyone who's not smarter than them.
Yeah.
And nobody's smarter than them.
Literally.
Literally, they're rocket scientists, right? Like, there's literally a problem here. Yeah. So I have to ask, what was your trigger? Because I have several friends, several acquaintances who did the blue suit and pearls for the female persuasion of law firm, and are now not way off, not the blue suit and pearls version, the more authentic version of themselves. What was the thing? Was there a catalyst for you in particular that said, I'm out of here, I have to do this differently?
Yeah. It started out in law school itself. I did well enough, and I had prestigious jobs and jobs with escalating levels of responsibility, authority, and just general jurisdiction as I moved forward. But even in law school, I felt like it was a little bit rigid in terms of the thinking that it promoted and rewarded people for, as well as a little bit conservative, not politically conservative, but conservative in terms of encouraging creative or forward,
more traditional,
non-traditional ways of thinking about problems, or over degree of cautiousness around potential solutions. And I noticed that socially as well as within the coursework. But okay, once I was in practice, I litigated it first. I felt like also in litigation, I was cleaning up other people's messes. And after a while, I was like, I need to be the one creating the mess and have other people cleaning up after me. And then number two, it was all arguing and not building anything. So I thought, well, executive leadership and management would be a better fit for me. And it most definitely was. But nonetheless, it wasn't me being my true, authentic self. I wasn't feeling internally free. Erin, I'm going to share something with you, and it's painful for me. And I might get a little bit emotional as I talk about it, but I feel like it needs to be shared. The very last, so I worked in New York City government for nearly 20 years in positions of escalating significant responsibility. And by that, I mean, I led major institutional reforms in really what's the alpha city in North America. Yes. I was responsible at one point for a division that had oversight over 300 plus nonprofits. Oh, wow. And I went from there into being second in command of New York City's entire administrative tribunal system. And that was an agency that brought in $100 million, if not more, of annual tax revenue, and had hundreds of employees across all 5 of our boroughs. And in that last job, there were days when I would feel like my soul was a deflated raft, just kicking back and forth against waters that were crashing into rocks, but ultimately going to take me down to the bottom of the ocean. And the low point came at one point, and this may not have been the last job, this may have been slightly before that, but the psychological space was still the same. I had a 7 a.m. meeting. And after that meeting was over, I went to get some breakfast at a diner that was across the street from the office where I worked at. And as I went out of that office building onto the sidewalk and was about to cross the street, I looked to my right, and there was one of these little steel portable coffee stands where you paid 75 cents and then the guy gave you a coffee or maybe a bagel or something like that. And I remember, in fact, I'll never forget it, looking at the man in the coffee stand. He was taking 75 cents from a woman who was next in line and handing her coffee with this big radiant smile on his face. And I just looked at it right before I crossed the street. And when I looked at him, I felt hate, intense hate and rage. I was like, I hate you for smiling. I hate you for being happy. And I'm angry that after all the shit, all the stuff I've been through in my life, I don't smile. Who are you, you coffee salesperson, to have the right to smile? That's where I was inside. If I were to look at my soul, Erin, you would have seen nothing but black in there.
It's projecting, right? It's you.
Yeah.
He was a mirror. He was a mirror, and you didn't like what you saw.
No, I couldn't see my way out. And I know I'm not the only person that feels that way or has felt that way. And I escaped. So when you ask me what the motivator is, it's because I've been there, but I've also made my way out to the other side. And I know how much better it is to be where I am now, having conversations with you, where I can express these things, where we can laugh and feel, and where I can wake up and be excited about my life. It doesn't have to be a miserable experience. It can be one full of joy. And I want that for other people. That's the beauty of getting to live like that.
Well, and as I was listening to you talk about what you did, it occurred to me, and we've had a couple conversations, and I won't claim to know you, but I get it. It's hard to be, and it just kind of doesn't bode well for society that if you're a person who cares, you won't be able to survive those jobs.
Yes.
Right? If you're a person who cares a lot, you won't be able to survive those jobs. That those jobs are, oddly enough, better suited by people who check boxes so that you have a checked box.
It's interesting. I recently read a book about leadership that essentially identified two types of leaders. One was the filtered leader, and the filtered leader is someone who does exactly what you're talking about. They fit into the boxes. They present a certain way, they speak a certain way, they act a certain way that's usually non-threatening, and they gradually escalate their way up to leadership positions of consequence by basically being the good boy or the good girl all the way. And then there is the unfiltered leader, who is the sort that is out of the box and that probably comes into the leadership room by kicking down the door or jumping through the kitchen window.
Right.
And I'm definitely that sort of person.
Right. Me too.
Yeah. And I think that your point about caring is really a big deal, because, you know, there were bosses that I had that were extraordinarily Machiavellian in their approach. And they would sometimes be honest about the games that they would want to play with people under me, or they would intentionally say, Scott, I don't like that approach that you're taking to dealing with this employee. I think you should do XYZ. And it would be unbelievably harsh and brutal. There was a time in which a leader that I worked for, I let her know about a mistake someone under my supervision had made that had some consequences, but it wasn't the end of the world. And I said, look, this is what I'm letting you know because I believe in transparency and you need to know. And then this is what I'm going to do about it. And I was going to notify him of the issue and come up with a corrective plan and encourage him to step into this. And she literally said, no, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to, and then she dictated a letter for me that was so harsh. And she said, you're copying me on that email, by the way. And so, Erin, to my eternal regret, and I really do regret this, I followed her instructions. And I heard later from his boss, who was also a report of mine, that when he opened the email and read it, she was there. This full-grown man burst into tears. It was so harsh. And I will have to live with that. Now, I later did apologize to him. I did not explain to him that I was ordered to write that because really I had to own my actions. I could have disobeyed that order. But I have to live with that for the rest of my life. What's worse, and he has forgiven me. I've seen him a number of times since, and it's always warmth and hugs and all that sort of stuff. But nonetheless, what's worse is that this person who was a good employee had to endure that. I cared and was instructed to act the opposite of that. And I could not have survived, I felt, unless I acted in a way that did not show caring. No wonder I had to leave.
Yeah. And so are you familiar? It's not a new book. It's something that I've recently been diving into, Map of Consciousness by David Hawkins.
I've heard of that book, but I have not read it. And now you just may have forced me to.
Well, I'll give you the shortcut. It's not the easiest read. It's fine. It's fine. It's a little doom and gloom, but what I like is he took a scientific approach to this idea that we're all at a certain vibration. How do you raise your vibration? Everything has a vibration. And he measured it scientifically, but then he also labeled it on this continuum that the bottom one is shame and the top one is enlightenment. And and in the book, he talks about that most of the people in the world vibrate at a level on a, if you're going to look at a scale of 1 to like 700, they're vibrating at like 85. They're vibrating out of fear and anxiety, right? Sad. Fear and anxiety. And he puts his delineation line at courage. And so I'm liking that piece, right? He puts his delineation line at courage. And I think as someone who came out of an incredible corporate experience, not that I didn't have other horribly illegally activity type things people would get in a lot of trouble for now in past jobs. My last role was absolutely amazing. I left more for self-actualization, right? But some of it is approaching it now with empathy towards ourselves. And also I do try, it's hard in the moment, but you do try to be like, how miserable is that person that's their instinctual response to conflict resolution is that.
Yeah, it's literally to just throw down Thor's hammer on the head of someone 3 or 4 levels below them in the organizational hierarchy.
There's a difference between I made a mistake and I did something on purpose to cause harm.
Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast brought to you by Conquer Your Business. With decades of experience, Conquer Your Business creates business and branding strategies that build multiple 6- and 7-figure businesses. And we don't just show you what to do. We have an entire team of people available to help you do it, strategy and implementation. You can learn more and reach out to us by visiting conqueryourbusiness.com. All right. Yeah. let's switch gears because I have questions. And it's my show, so I get to do that. Explain to me where the Greek mythology comes in, because I'm absolutely loving it and I need to know more.
Thank you. Let me start by stepping back a second and explaining what mythology is.
Yes.
Because a lot of folks just see it as a bunch of old stories. It's a lot more than that. Now, there has been a lot of debate in history, believe it or not, exactly about what makes something a mythology. One of the best definitions that I've ever read of it is in a book, by the way, named The Philosophy of Mythology, that identifies mythology as the expression of values that defines a people. The stories, the cultural mores, the very intangible set of things that makes a people say, we are this people. In other words, mythology is the expression of identity. Taking that to a personal level, the mythology that we create for ourselves, that we live out, is an expression of our identity. Myths, Greek myths in particular, have been around for thousands of years now. They have resonated across the globe for that long because they represent something to people. They have transformational power. Otherwise, people wouldn't care.
Right.
If
we would be
right.
still telling them. Yeah.
Exactly. And so if you think about Greek myths as a way of expressing an identity, and expressing an identity that at this point is beyond ancient Greece, that is truly global. How do they resonate? They resonate within each of us as expressions of our own identity. And so if you understand Greek mythology as an allegory for your own identity, their power to transform you, just as they can transform and have transformed entire societies, is limitless. And that's how and why they fit into the transformational program that is my signature work and that I live for.
Well, and I think what it does is sometimes in this type of work, it's hard because we don't see our own issues. We don't see our own, we're all too close to it, right?
Right.
And now you're introducing a body of knowledge, a body of work, a vernacular that we're not familiar with. And now I'm supposed to somehow take this knowledge that I don't understand and apply it to myself that I can't see.
Yeah.
And one of the things, the way that I'm interpreting what you do is now we have this external, right? We have this external thing we understand, we can see, we can grasp, to act as that reflection, to act as the North Star, to act as all of the things. Right?
Absolutely.
Something tangible around these very abstract concepts.
Beautifully put. It is both relatable, but also creates a distance between you and the conceptual changes that need to occur in order for a transformation to genuinely happen. The other thing is, let's face it, it's fun.
I was just going to say, it's a trip. Like, I'm listening, I'm going, I need to do it your way, because what I've done is I've printed out, like, this is not as fun. Okay, so my chart's a rainbow color, so it's pretty, right? It's got colors and words and stuff, but I printed out the map of consciousness because there's so many words on it. Your view of the world, your primary emotion, your behavior. And what I do every day is I try to find the word that relates to me. And then I look 1 or 2 levels up and say, okay, what would it look like if I showed up like that?
Right.
What do I need to do? Who do I need to be? What do I need to believe to intentionally raise my vibration? But your way's more fun.
Well, There's always 100 zillion different definitions of fun. But if you're going to say mine is more
ours are a
fun,
little close to each other. I don't think you and I will disagree over what's fun.
yeah, I'll happily claim that. Look, I will say a couple of things. First of all, the myths are themselves over the top, dramatic, exciting, full of color, and that's part of why they have been so popular throughout the past few thousand years. And so to the extent that talking about gods and goddesses and monsters and dragons and all that sort of stuff is fun, I totally own that. And I think the Greek myths themselves, if they could think and talk and speak, would own it as well, too. But one of the most fun things that happens in this is that you're talking about is, and there is a whole process that this is just a small part of, but it goes as to the idea of fun, is that, I begin to talk about the challenges and the narratives that my clients might be telling themselves in mythological terms, as well as the roles that they may be playing in mythological terms. And then as I get to know them, I begin to throw out some ideas about who or what they might be in terms of a mythological avatar. And what's fascinating is, and I know this stuff so well, a lot of these avatars are somewhat obscure, but what's interesting is one of two things happen. First of all, the client will take that avatar idea that I had and research it. And before long, either they've adopted it, they're like, oh my God, that is me. Or they will find a similar or a related deity that speaks to them even more. And a lot of times they get their children and their families involved. Oh, I spent time with my husband. We were digging in the internet. My children got involved talking about this. So it can bring people into a deeper and interesting level of connection with those that they love in a way, again, that sort of brings fun and humor. Oh, Apollo, yeah, that is you. That wonderful quality about Apollo and that annoying thing about Apollo, too.
Because the number one way that humans connect is story.
Yes.
Humans connect through stories.
Yes. They do.
Right. So when I'm trying to explain to my very supportive and yet very straight-laced traditional boyfriend, which is hysterical when people who knew how I grew up and we're so well matched, but it is what it is, right? When I start talking to him about what he would call my woo-woo stuff, he's very happy for me, but I know he has no idea what I'm talking about. But he has a degree in anthropology.
Hey,
right? Like if I would just start talking to him instead about characters in Greek mythology, he'd be all over it.
And you raise an interesting point. And one of the reasons why I love this particular component of my program so much is that Greek mythology is one area of study that has both this fun element that we've been talking about, but genuine, and I mean genuine intellectual heft, both from a historical perspective, from a psychological perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a philosophical perspective, from a metaphorical perspective, from a literary and artistic perspective, from a symbolic perspective. No one can argue unless they are just really, unless they are the gods and goddesses of ignorance, that Greek myths do not bring a whole intellectual stratus into or an intellectual infrastructure into the discussion, which makes this program one that is both intellectually gratifying and stimulating and emotionally fulfilling.
Well, and it's also, so I have been talking a lot. One of the things I talk about a lot with my clients is you have to meet your clients where they are.
Yes.
You have to meet your clients where they are. The better you understand your clients, the better you can do your messaging and deliver your services. And if we go back to the fact that your client, and this is just a perfect example, so yay you, but like go back to the fact of who you're looking to serve. You're looking to serve educated people.
Yeah.
They're going to respond better to an educated solution.
Being blunt.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So, but people miss that. People miss that in their marketing, and they miss that in their brand. your brand is not your website. Your brand is as much how you deliver your services as how you talk about your services. And the more you understand who you're helping, and this is what you're talking about, is a really, really good implementation of this idea of where is the intersection between what your ideal client needs the most and what you solve.
It's going back to what we spoke about at the beginning of the discussion. Why me?
Right.
I have the law degree, but for my core client to buy into the coaching process, they have to feel intellectually satisfied. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Now, I will also say this, though, and I would be very curious as to your thoughts about this, Erin, and I'm sure you have a lot to say about it, which is when I
to say about a lot of things.
And that's why we have this love affair. But when I first debuted this brand and began to roll it out, particularly on social media, and occasionally now to this day, I got a very strong reaction, and much of it was negative. I had people say, this is stupid. It will fail. And even recently, this is something no one will understand. Greek mythology is something that isn't part of any sort of mainstream. So you might appeal to the very small portion of people who actually know what a Greek myth is. But many of us, I don't understand this, or you're not making sense, or this doesn't speak to me. I've learned to embrace those people. They know they're not my tribe. But talk to me a little bit about your response to hearing that sort of story, because that was something I really had to struggle to overcome as I stepped into my own branding and being there for my core.
Oh my God, right? It's learning to be happy that they're saying that to you. Like, that's hard, right?
It is.
And I get it. In the beginning of a business, it's brutal, especially coming out of careers where we're successful. And what I learned, if I didn't say this to you before, what I learned about going from a successful C-suite level career to an entrepreneur is I thought I had promotions, I had bonuses, I had accolades. Look at Erin. Erin's so brilliant. This is great. I'm so smart. This will be easy. And then what I found out after I left corporate and started my own business was I was successful on a very narrow path designed by somebody else. Okay.
Yeah.
And
yes.
Right. And those external attaboys just went away.
Oh, yeah.
They just go away. So I had no more external validation. I had no more path.
Yeah.
Right. And now you have people, whether it's that's dumb, or who do you think you are, or you don't look like us.
Yeah.
I mean, pick your challenge.
Yeah.
But they're all telling you the same thing, which is no.
Yeah.
And the thing that I have fun with you is you have the same energy as me, which I've learned to describe as the fact that I'm too much for most people in real life makes me just enough for the internet.
Oh my God, you're quotable.
So great. So how do you, me learning to it all goes together, right? Me learning to step into the fact that I'm 53 years old, covered in tattoos, my hair is mostly shaved, and I'm wearing a cow whisperer t-shirt, though I have an MBA, multiple, like that can all go together. That can all go together.
Not only that, I believe it can provide people hope. Because for those, going back into this conversation about filtered leaders, some people may feel as though they are funneled into a filtered leader model, if that's not who and what they are inside, or they may be rejected through the filtering process. And if that happens, they may feel like they're failures or that there isn't space for them to be them. Part of why I present the way I do, and for those who might just be listening to this podcast, right, I'll just, I'm in a leather motorcycle jacket. I've got rings on my fingers. I've got a motorcycle goatee, beard combo, all this sort of stuff that people
Well,
might
and you
not
have the same dramatic energy that I get when I'm excited.
Well, and that's the other thing too, that whole dramatic energy that may be off-putting or people might not associate with a Columbia law degree professional, but
former government official, right?
Former government official of all, right? But that being said, for those that might have felt filtered out or felt trapped, if they can look at Erin Marcus, if they can look at Scott Mason and say, well, look at how far they've come and they're making it, well, maybe I can go a third of the way or a fifth of the way and I'll be okay too. And so we have the benefit of getting to live authentically, be the big personalities that we are, while also hopefully inspiring people to take steps that are right for them to move into who and what they want to be. I also just have to say as an aside, if I'm going to be sitting up here talking about Greek gods and goddesses and heroes, I cannot sit and be some boring little personality. I mean, for heaven's sake.
It's not congruous.
Yeah, come on. If I'm going to be throwing around lightning bolts and talking about chariots in the sky, meek and mild,
it's not going to happen. Right. The people are going to know something's off. That's funny. I just did a presentation last week for a business conference. And one of the things I was talking about is authenticity in your brand and how when you don't have it, people will back away slowly because they think something's off. And my first business under Erin Marcus, the logo was a blue and gray paisley square. There's nothing blue, gray, or paisley about me. I'm sorry,
I have to be real with you.
And then I don't know why that year was Erin's year of failure. I don't know, maybe because I wasn't right. And so to take a step back though, because one thing I'm very, very, very clear on and can't say enough is you don't have to be me. Now, currently my hair is all one color. You don't have to be covered in tattoos, purple hair, leopard gym shoes, leather jacket on stage swearing. You don't have to be me. The beauty of what you and I are both saying is please just go be more you.
One of the pillars of my program is called the charismatic Olympian process. And that is about once people have gotten rid of the toxic myths that are holding them back and developed a new mythological foundation, a vision for their future, I work with them to connect their voice and how they present with what that vision is. And that's where I hear a lot of this. I'm a small, petite person. I'm an introvert. I don't necessarily have a loud, booming voice. I can't be you, Scott. So when you're talking about charisma, how can that be me? Charisma, which is really what you're talking about, presenting fully and authentically as yourself, is not the same as entertainment. Being loud, boisterous, that is a statement of entertainment. Yes. But connecting your message with who and what you are, and then unapologetically with purple hair or quiet, soft whisper that people cannot help but lean into and hear, is at the root of what charisma and being a charismatic Olympian is. And I suspect, and again, argue with me if you will, that from a branding and marketing perspective, if you don't have charisma, if you don't have the ability to capture people's attention, you're at a severe marketing disadvantage.
And it goes back to alignment, meeting your clients where they are. Where is the intersection between what they need and what you can do? Because here's some of the things that I'm not. Right. I'm not a nurturer. I'm not a caretaker. I'm not.
And by the way, that sounds very authentic. I actually completely believe you.
I'm not. I suck at it. I barely take care of myself. I mean, my boyfriend left for 5 days and filled the house with this lot. Oh my God. You would have thought he left a 14-year-old home alone. He left me frozen pizzas, ice cream, and boxes of mac and cheese because he knows I'm not going to do anything else. I barely take care of myself on a good day, right? It's not me, but there's a huge need for those people.
Yeah.
There's a huge need for nurturers. So we're not all doing the same thing. So we don't all have to be the same person.
No. There may be people, even my core client group more broadly, who don't particularly have a desire to have Scott Mason's loud voice coming through their Zoom call during a coaching session. Right? They may want. It's shocking.
It's shocking.
And if that's true, then I'm not for them, and that's cool. That's
Totally.
cool. They deserve exactly what's right for them, because in order for people to fully meet their potential, they have to feel safe. They have to feel comfortable. They have to feel connected with those that are encouraging them to become Olympians of whatever stripe they might be.
And part of embracing your authentic self and living the life right on your terms is being not just okay with people not wanting you, quote unquote, but happy for them to know that.
Yeah.
Right?
Heck yeah.
Like, happy for them to know that.
Yeah. And that's why also I'm a big believer in right up front. Sometimes prospects are ambivalent about whether this is the right program, because they may be interviewing 4 or 5 people, which, hey, I don't object to that at all. And, if there's ambivalence, I really try and inquire as to why. Sometimes I really want to work with this person because my gut is saying I can really do something for you. And then it's just a matter of me figuring out how can we bridge that gap so that whatever is causing them to have reservation can be resolved, and they can allow me to bring out everything possible within them. But other times, really, I'm not going to be the right person. I'm really not. And that's totally cool. And I want to be able to direct them to the right person. I guess because I don't know about you, but if we're in this sort of business, it's not about just, me, everyone coming to me, blah, blah, blah. It's actually about helping people. And if we can't help people, then it's pointless. Send them to someone who can.
Find the people who can.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a really good lead off, because I know you can help people. And I know you also, if people want to continue this conversation with you, and I know you have gifts, come bearing gifts, how can you help people? How can they find you?
Well, first of all, I direct people happily to my website, myfreedomrocks.com, myfreedomrocks.com. And if they are interested in some free gifts, just email me at scott@myfreedomrocks.com, or just sign up to, via the website. And my email is on the website too. So you can either sign up using the opt-in there or directly through email, and I will happily send you one of these gifts. First of all, there is a free 5-minute professional freedom self-assessment that I love to give people. And really what it does is it encourages them to look inside and say, well, what toxic myths might be keeping me from becoming the Olympian in my own life? And then it also begins to help them think about how to plan to make a new vision for their future actually occur. So that's gift number 1. It's a 5-minute self-assessment, and it's fun, it's interesting, and I've been told that it is enlightening for people. Number 2, there is an ebook that I would love to share with anyone who is part of your audience. It is called, unsurprisingly, Charismatic Olympian. By the way, I have to say, it's beautifully illustrated. If you like pictures that are full of dragons and monsters and cool looking gods in leather jackets and Athena, with this amazing, or if you like to just see people in sci-fi hovercrafts that are inhabiting mythological worlds, the illustrations are perfect for you. But really what the content is about is my own journey from being a stuffy, unhappy, miserable attorney stuck in Hades and escaping to live the life that I get to live now, and really diving deeply into how and why Greek myths can be the secret to unlocking a better life for you. So just ask for the ebook, Charismatic Olympian. One way or another, I'll know what it is, and I'm thrilled to share it with anyone who's part of your audience.
So thank you so much. Always love chatting with you. Your authenticity, your vulnerability, and all of your knowledge. So thank you so much for spending time with me.
Mutual fan club, Erin.